Is imagination only for kids? Well, in that case, if it is, then I'm a kid. Because to me, living in a world of imagination is being alive. Um, there are a couple of different dimensions of imagination. We sometimes associate imagination with fantasy, as if things that you imagine are things that can happen. But I have, I suppose, the opposite view, which is that imagination is that dimension of ourselves that really reaches in to the wholeness of life, which is all there is and all that isn't yet but could be. So it's all of that creative capacity that life has to create things that have not yet come into being. People sometimes think that imagination is a luxury, but the fact is, imagination is the thing which makes everything new possible, because we have an easy time creating things once we can imagine them, but imagination is usually the limit that we bump into, not the doing, but the imagining what is possible. So if you think about the thing that you would most love to see happen, and notice in yourself the resistances that arise even as you try to imagine it, the limits that get put on inside. Because this is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 and the moonshot, I think about the point at which John F. Kennedy really captured the imagination of people in this country by simply saying, we need to put a man on the moon. And while that would have been unimaginable until someone had that as an idea, as soon as people could imagine it, people began almost immediately to figure out how to make it happen. So when you think of life as constantly moving forward and trying to create in the most adaptive way possible, I think of imagination as that faculty which helps us see that which is not yet visible in a way that makes it possible for us to move and organize in that direction. Children are given a lot of space to imagine. And one of the things Imagine Chicago has been devoted to is taking that open-ended nature and whole-making nature of imagination and bringing it into public processes and public spaces. So you can take a community like Inglewood in Chicago, which has been traditionally a hard-hit community and an economically challenged community, and simply raising the question of imagine Inglewood if sets in motion a whole way of seeing the future in citizen hands that says something new is possible here. And as soon as people have the courage to believe that something new is possible, and then begin to name it, to express it in very concrete ways, then energy begins to really gather around that new thing. And when people come together in community and say, oh, yes, I see that thing too, I can also imagine it, then things can move forward. So just asking that question of what people can imagine and then grounding it in a place, imagine Inglewood if, imagine Chicago if, imagine Nepal if, and a world opens. And once we can step into that world, we can look around and we can imagine what it can be. And from that world, we can look back and imagine how we got there. All of those things we are capable of, and all of those things chart a path which we can then follow.